Welcome. Thank you very much for coming to my presentation about dry powder inhalation. Today I want to give you a good introduction on how to manufacture a blister strip device, which of course is very well known from GlaxoSmithKline. But before starting into the process and machinery for dry powder inhalation, I would also give you a short introduction to the inhalation market itself and short introduction to what needs to be considered when developing a dry powder inhaler. One slide about my company. I work with the company Haro Höfliger. It's a Germany-based company for equipment, manufacturing, process equipment to do various types of processes. We have the majority of our business coming from the pharmaceutical industry, but also we supply equipment and machinery to fast-moving consumer goods or chemical or technical areas. But I want to talk about the topic of asthma, and I show you now a few slides about the prevalence of asthma and what happens with asthma. And as you can see on the map, the blue areas are areas where the prevalence of asthma is rather low, while in the red areas you have a very high prevalence of asthma on the world. And as you can see, especially Russia and China appear in blue. And this is probably the case because asthma in Russia and China is still very much underestimated. And if you think about the population in China, if there will be a growth of 2% of asthma patients in China, then all of a sudden you will have 20 million additional asthma patients in those regions. And still, there's no reason why the asthma rate in China should be lower compared to the US. Still, it's underestimated, and still there's a lot to do for the healthcare system to do this. But if you look to China and Russia in terms of asthma-related death, then these countries are number one. So the likelihood of having asthma in China might be low. Nevertheless, if you have asthma, then the likelihood that you're going to die on it is much higher. And this is simply connected to the situation that in those countries, there's hardly any access to good asthma medication. So still, especially for dry powder inhalation, which is a very important treatment for asthma patients, there are hardly any products available in those countries. And if they are available, then they are only available on very high prices, and so they are not affordable to the people in these countries. And also, asthma is one of the fast-growing diseases in the world currently. And this is, first of all, related to a situation where also emerging countries are adapting to Western lifestyles, as well as emerging countries are still suffering from air pollution. And also, don't forget, Russia and China are by far the largest cigarette markets in the world. And everybody knows that heavy smokers, after 20 or 30 years of heavy smoking, gonna develop COPD disease, and so also they require good treatment on their disease later on. Still, the asthma COPD market is projected to grow by 2015, probably not as fast as it has been growing during the past 5 years. But nevertheless, the market will grow, and it will grow because the originators like GlaxoSmithKline and AstraZeneca, they have new innovative drugs in the pipeline. Some are close and will have approval soon. However, there's a patent cliff right now on very important asthma drugs, especially for Seretide, especially for Symbicort, and also Spiriva will soon face the patent phase out. And so here, generic competition will enter the market. And of course, the market growth in terms of value will slow down because of the lower prices of the generics. If you look to the how is asthma treated, then you can see that 70% of asthma patients at least treated by a portable inhaler, and 5 billion US dollar are related to aerosols. The other 10 billion US dollar in the 6 important markets, US, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, are related to dry powder inhalation. And the rest of it, nebulized products and tablets, take a rather minor role in the treatment of asthma. If you look, you can choose between an aerosol or on a dry powder inhaler. You can see that the sales value, 50% of the US market is related to dry powder inhalation. However, the aerosols, they make around about 20% of the market in the US. However, if you look to the sales volume on the number of units, then you see that aerosols, they make around about 60% of the market in volume, but the dry powder inhaler in terms of units make only 20%. So what it tells you, the aerosol business is large volume, but no money to earn. And this is really a mass market. If you look to the market and you take a picture of the aerosols, and I've shown some of these here on my slide, you can see this is a kind of standardized packaging, standardized actuator, standardized valve technology, and also standard processes available to manufacture aerosols. And this is the reason why this is a very high volume business. Dry powder inhalation, and I've shown some dry powder inhaler on the right-hand side. You see already this is very diverse, and it's really a challenge also for the generic industry to cope with so much different technology available in the market and to choose what should be the right technology for my generic version of a serotype, for instance. So, and even to make it a little bit easier to understand the diversity, you can differentiate dry powder inhaler between reservoir inhaler, blister-based inhaler, cartridge inhaler, or capsule-based inhaler. And products shown here, certainly products where Harro Höfliger has been involved with the manufacturing equipment which is required to safely and manufacture those products. One, certainly we are in Spain, and one product which just achieved approval this year in Europe and in US in parallel is aclidinium bromide coming from Almirall. And also here, Harro Höfliger supplied the equipment to manufacture or to fill the dry powder into the reservoir and finally to have the assembly of the final device. But also, Harro Höfliger is involved and the supplier of the machinery of the GlaxoSmithKline serotype product. Also here, Harro Höfliger supplied the majority of the lines which are required to manufacture these products. So everybody knows serotype is a very big product. In the US, it achieves sales in excess of 3 billion US dollar. And worldwide, it's published that GSK earns 8 billion US dollar only with one product. And there are a number of units of 50 to 70 million units per year involved. And so this becomes a very attractive target to the generic industry. Now, looking at the 3 inhaler on the bottom, they make around about 60 to 70% of the dry powder inhaler market, but they are all completely different. You have serotype using blister strip technology, and you have Symbicort using a reservoir technology, and you have Spiriva using a capsule technology. Now, the originators have a diverse dry powder inhaler technology. However, the regulators, at least in the regulated market like US and Europe, ask you to come up with a similar device. So there is no one-size-fits-all strategy. If you want to be similar, you must somehow copy every device, but this is very cost-intensive and it's very, very complex to generic companies. Nevertheless, I would focus now the rest of my talk to the serotype discus inhaler, and certainly the generic industry must develop a strategy on how to enter into the dry powder inhalation market. And maybe it could be a strategy to use a different device, but it could be also a strategy to use a similar device. And I would show you right now what is required if you go for a similar device. So if you take an inside look to the AccuHaler, then you see there's a blister strip inside. The blister strip is coiled. Every pocket is filled 100% up to the brim. And yeah, that's basically the device. And so in order to have this product, you need to do certain steps. And first of all, you need to get the dry powder formulation, of course. Then you need to have a machinery to make the primary packaging and do the powder filling. And the next step, of course, you need to make an in-process control to the product you filled. And you continue then bringing the blister strip into the device, which is a rather critical process. And then you continue on the final device assembly, and also you continue on secondary or tertiary packaging, which would be normally a flow wrap package or a cardboard packaging. In parallel, you need to have a device. Normally you go to an injection molding company who would mold you the plastic components, and then you need to assemble these plastic components and bring it into your factory for the final assembly also. So for the filling technology, Harro Höfliger has different filling technology available. Dosator and the vacuum drum technology is rather known. The membrane technology is very new, and it has been invented by Harro Höfliger really to enter into the generic market and to provide the technology which allows you to 100% fill a blister cavity. And this is shown down here. And this is a result how it comes from our blister, from our membrane filling technology. You see, every blister cavity has been precisely filled, 100% up to the brim, and how it functions, it's rather easy. You have a powder reservoir on top. Down here is your blister cavity, and the blister cavity will be covered by a membrane, and we will now apply a vacuum, and the vacuum will make the powder flowing into the cavity, and the membrane will stop that the powder goes into the vacuum system. And so simply the result from it shows you a 100% filled blister cavity. Over this, it has certain advantages. You don't have any powder spillage on the sealing area. And the originator certainly uses a different process where powder spillage on the surface takes place. Secondly, we don't have any powder dust generation in the work environment, so also workplace requirements are easily achieved. Last but not least, I will show you an upscaling is possible on this process also, and it's available technology. There are no exclusivities behind. All rights are with Harro Höfliger, and here we can make it available to originators as well as to the generic industry. The scale-up is shown on this slide. On the left-hand side, we have a little tabletop equipment which you can use to make first technical samples for in vitro testing. In the middle, you see what we call an SSP1 equipment. It is kind of automatic filling equipment, but with manual handling in between. And at the end, you have down there a full automatic equipment to make the blister filling only. This is a picture on how the membrane filling takes place. Also, this is just the tabletop equipment. It costs you some money to start at least a project and start technical evaluations. If you want to go into clinical trials, and in Europe and in regulated markets, clinical trials will be required according to current regulations. You need to have a more automated system at least, and this is our SSP2 equipment. Nevertheless, the blister strip will be in a handling frame, and you need to manually transport the handling frames between filling station and between forming and sealing station. This is what you can see here, kind of a preparation of a blister before you go for forming and before you go for filling. And this is then a full automatic equipment, what we call our SSP2 equipment, and this achieves up to 11 blister strips per minute. So if you work on a 3-shift system, this piece of equipment would supply you with round about 3 million units per year, which for a generic company to start with is probably a good figure if you think that GSK currently has 50 to 70 million units per year. The next step would be your in-process control, how to verify the powder which has been dosed into the cavity. And of course, the simplest way would be just shake the powder out of the cavity and make a tear and gross weigh check weighing. This is very time consuming, and you may have a lot of operator failures in here. So Harro Höfliger developed a kind of an automated in-process control system where you take a filled blister strip and you place the filled blister strip into the machinery, and now the machine will do an automatic check weighing of every individual dose in every pocket of the blister strip. You need to think about pre-assembling, and pre-assembly is just taking the components coming out of the mold, the plastic components. Here, of course, the device itself has some pitfalls in it, and when you do assembly, you can do it manually. However, you need to consider there are critical areas in the device, and certainly if you don't take care for these critical areas, your device might fail also. So there will be a learning curve in every company who tries to copy this type of device. And you can then go also for semi-automatic assembly, and a concept you see here is with 5 people working on one machine, doing some parts manually assembled, while some small parts in the device will be automatically assembled. The critical process is the blister strip coiling. You now take the double blister strip, which comes out of the SSP2 process, and this is on an endless wheel, and you take this endless wheel to the next process step, which is the blister strip coiling. And you can do it again manually, so you would cut apart the double blister strip into individual blister strips, and you place them into a small manual fixture to make the coiling of the blister strip. We also developed an automatic process where you take the endless blister wheel, put it into the next machine, and here this machine will do the automatic cutting and coiling process, and then assemble it also into the device. And finally, you also start the final assembly, which is rather easy. The final assembly for the discus inhaler, as this involves only 3 components, and this can be initially done also easily by hand. You continue into the secondary and tertiary packaging, which can be a flow wrap, can be a cartoning machine, and also here Harro Höfliger has equipment available to do this full automatically. So overall, if you want to start such a project on dry powder inhalation, we have all technologies in hand to bring you fast to the market and to support your overall project. And we can supply you with all machinery and all equipment which is required to manage such a project. And having this said, we are kind of a market leader for production lines for dry powder inhalation products. And we are involved in almost 70 to 80% of inhalation projects in the world. Among this is also Mankind with Afresa. If maybe some of you know this, there will be also new originator products coming up where we are involved. And so there's a lot of expertise in Hydrohypfliga. And we say we want to sell machines, and so we do support people who have an interest in dry powder inhalation. And so we also provide, to a certain extent, some consulting services, but never forget, it will be your project, and we will be only part of the project as a supplier. And with this, I'm at the end. If you found this very interesting, I'm in this hall on booth number F06, and I'm happy to welcome you there and to continue the discussion if you like. And I don't know if I have time, but if you have questions, I give you the opportunity to ask. Is there any questions? Okay. Thank you.